san ge Chosegan Ishibujodo Shigan Humanzok Sepujo Shogak Gao Muryo
Kenzo Arita, Masaye Nakai, Jitsu Nakayama, Jenichi Nakagawa, Hiroshi Nakayama, Yoneko Fujie, Linda Tsugie Nishimura, Charles Franklin Moss, George Masakatsu Ida, George Tadamichi Kanda, James Masayuki Onchi, Hatsue Okimoto, Chieko Nishimura, Shizuko Arima, Helen Nishimoto, Koko Suto, Mae Yamada, Kimiko Taniguchi, Doug Yamada, Harry Taketa, Natalie Nguyen, Tomio Hamasaki, Masaru Hamamoto, Kiyono Maekawa.
Ishukai Hozo Kosei Kudoku Ho Yodai Shuchu Seppo Shishiku Kuyo Isai Bud Dusoku Shutoku Hon Ganne Shitanjo Man Toku Isai sai sho son, shigan yako ka, daisen o kando, koku sho ten nin, to uchi myoke. Yodo sei sai do hoten bodai shin ojo Namanda, 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 namanda.
The Golden Chain. I am a link in Amida's golden chain of love that stretches around the world. I will keep my link bright and strong. I will be kind and gentle to every living thing and protect all who are weaker than myself. I will think pure and beautiful thoughts, say pure and beautiful words, and do pure and beautiful deeds. May every link in Amida's golden chain of love be bright and strong, and may we all attain perfect peace. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our virtual service, and thank you for joining us today. Please join me in Gasho for a reading of the Dharmakara Bodhisattva's 19th vow. If, when I attain Buddhahood, the sentient beings of the 10 quarters, awakening the mind of enlightenment and performing meritorious acts, should aspire with sincere mind and desire to be born in my land, and yet I should not be born there, I should not appear before them at the moment of death, surrounded by a host of sages, may I not attain the supreme enlightenment. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namanda. Today we dedicate our service to those who have gone before us to the pure land of perfect peace during this month and years gone by. We remember our Dharma friends, family, and our Dharma ancestors with warmth and happiness. By keeping the memories of our loved ones alive, we can conceivably better understand ourselves. This week I officiated a burial service, and at the beginning of the service the weather was cooperating pretty well, and it was not raining. But just as the service began, it started raining, and many of the attendees were stuck outside the small shelter that was provided by the mortuary. And as you know, in this area of the state, the weather can change very rapidly, even within a few miles distance. This was one of those many services that I've officiated at during mildly inclement weather. When this happens and the weather changes for the worse, I almost always think of the following story. This story is about a Zen abbot of a monastery in one of the coldest parts of Japan. And as I said, he became sick. The abbot became sick. His body was racked with pain, chills, and fever. And day after day, he endured the pain for several weeks. And in addition to being sick, the abbot was pretty much far advanced in years. This, along with his sickness, made life almost unbearable. So he decided it was time for him to go to heaven. So he just gives up and he quits eating. And at mealtime, the novice monks would bring his meals to his room because he was unable to walk to the dining hall. After several days, they reported to the head disciple that the abbot was not eating. The head disciple then visited the abbot and inquired about his not eating his food. The abbot informed him that because of so much pain and discomfort that he was experiencing, that he had decided to just go ahead and die by starvation. The disciple jumped up and with a harsh voice chastised the old abbot by saying, "You selfish old rascal, you're going to die and force us to bury you in the frozen ground. This will be an extreme inconvenience to all the members of this monastery." And the chief disciple knew what would happen next. He knew that because of his compassion and his love for all of his disciples, the old abbot would begin eating again, and he did, and he survived until spring, where he was treated to a glorious funeral filled with much joy and laughter. I wonder if you knew for certain that without the slightest doubt that something was going to happen. Would you be afraid of it, or would you just laugh? I've got a couple more stories here. There was a monk who was a great orator, full of stories and energetic organizational capabilities, popular among most of the young monks, but he fell seriously ill at the age of around 50. And one of his junior monks went to visit him at the hospital and where he was being treated. He wanted to know what the monks think of when they are faced with death. This younger monk was surprised to see that his senior, who he had heard was very ill, met him smilingly and was widely, even though he was bedridden, he was smiling widely when the young man came in. He says, come on in. There's an excellent news. The doctors tell me," said the older monk with a grin to his younger colleague, "that I only have maybe 2 or 3 days more to live." And so the young monk was stunned. And the old monk said, "Why do you look so grim?" He continued. "I'm absolutely delighted. I am very happy. And just a couple of days later, I will be in the house of God." The older monk laughed loudly and continued, "Have told God to send a car and pick me up. I don't feel much like walking." There was another young monk who had fallen ill, found himself in the same hospital with another extremely ill elderly monk. Doctors told the younger monk that the old monk might pass away soon. One night, suddenly, loud screams were heard from the room of the older monk, and people rushed there, including this young monk. When things settled down a bit, the young monk asked the older colleague, "So what happened?" "Nothing much," laughed the older monk. "I was sleeping peacefully, and all of a sudden my eyes opened. I saw some long, black, hairy arms of demons surrounding me, reaching for me. I immediately understood that Yama, the god of death, had sent these demons to get me. And this really made me angry, and I told him, 'Don't you dare, I will break your legs. Run away, run away.' And I chased them away." The younger monk was astonished. He asked the older monk, he said, Didn't you feel scared?" "Scared," guffed the old monk, "not at all. Those fools had come to take someone else and had arrived at my bedside instead." A little more humor. Said, "The emperor asked Master Gudo what happens to a man of enlightenment after death." "How should I know?" replied the master. "Because you are a master," answered the emperor. "Yes, sir," said Gudo, "but I am not dead, not a dead one." In other words, he couldn't tell him what happened after death. The 19th vow that I read at the beginning of my talk is further stated in the Sutra of the Lotus of Compassion, which states, "I vow that when I have attained supreme enlightenment, if sentient beings of the countless, innumerable, incalculable, and other Buddha realms should awaken the mind of aspiring for the highest perfect enlightenment, practice roots of good, and desire to be born in my realm, I will appear before them surrounded by a host of sages. Upon seeing me, those people will, in my presence, attain joy in their hearts. Because they see me, they will be freed of all obstructions and will immediately be born in the realm when their lives end. And Shinran states this idea of Amida's coming at the moment of death is for those who seek to gain birth in the Pure Land by doing various practices. For they are practitioners of self-power, is what Shinran tells us. The moment of death is of central concern to such people, for they have not yet attained true Shinjin. We may also speak of Amida's coming at the moment of death in the case of those who, though they have committed the 10 transgressions and the 5 grave offenses throughout their lives, encounter a teacher in the hour of death and are led to the very end to be able to utter the Nembutsu. But Shinran goes on to say that the practitioner of true Shinjin, however, abides in the stage of the truly settled, for he or she has already grasped never to be abandoned, and there is no need to wait in anticipation for the moment of death, no need to rely on Amida's coming. At the time Shinjin becomes settled, this true and trusting, birth too becomes settled. There is no need for the deathbed rites that prepare one for Amida's coming. No need for the deathbed rites that prepare one for Amida's coming. Mark Twain said it this way. He said, "The fear of death follows from the fear of life. A person who lives fully is prepared to die at any time." So in closing, once again, please join me for a reading of the 19th vow. If, when I attain Buddhahood, the sentient beings of the 10 quarters, awakening the mind of enlightenment and performing meritorious acts, should aspire with sincere mind and desire to be born in my land, and yet I should not appear before them at the moment of death, surrounded by hosts of sages, may I not attain the supreme enlightenment. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda. Again, thank you for joining us today, and have a happy rest of your day.